Well, here we go. Long time coming. It's my good friend, returning guest, Bobby Morelli from Match Perfectly on the line. How are we doing today, Bobby?
Pete, it's great to see you. Good to be back. Excited to chat about the game.
Absolutely. The game we're talking about today. So I do like these. I don't know if they're obscure or left field, but when I ask you which ones would you like to review, if you got something on your mind, the first one was Usual Suspects, I think, that you threw back, which
Yeah,
was something
yeah,
that I didn't
yeah.
really have at front of mind. But now we're talking about the game. And again, I saw that a million years ago, and I'm thinking, what's going on with the game? All I can remember
Right.
is the ending. But maybe I'll ask you, why the game are we doing this today?
Boy, this is one that I hadn't watched in a long time either. And, just thinking about really stylish films with sartorial aspects that are really prevalent in the film. I thought this would be a really fun one to go back and revisit. I think Michael Douglas, his performance in it is really, really good. And, revisiting this again, I probably haven't seen this film in 10 or 15 years anyway. And I think it really holds up. I think the plot is interesting. I think, and we'll get into, kind of the look of the film. I think it holds up really well. And it is a little bit obscure. And I think maybe this is something that folks haven't watched that might be a really entertaining film, for folks. They haven't seen it. I really do recommend it. It's a good film.
Yeah, I fell in love again with Michael Douglas watching this film. And I think it was off the back of Fatal Attraction. For some reason, that was on the BBC, and I watched that,
Okay.
like the
Yeah.
night before. So I did like back to back Douglas. But 90s, mid 90s, and especially around this time, it felt like we were entering peak Douglas here. Does that
It's
feel
like
like that to you?
it does. Yeah. It's like, he's so good at being he's so pompous, he's so arrogant, he's so self-centered in this, but you watch that break down over the course of the film where he becomes just a little bit out of his comfort zone, very much out of his comfort zone, and really vulnerable. And I think seeing that arc or that decline for that character makes this film really, really interesting. And it's very much just it's him in a lot of ways. I mean, there are a lot of it's a very Hitchcockian position he's put in where his reality is being distorted and played with. And for somebody like this in a position of power, he's not used to that like at all. And so I think you're right. This is like Michael Douglas. It really the pinnacle of. I think this may be my favorite Michael Douglas film.
He
Really,
does do these.
one of them.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, he's got quite the catalog. I haven't got into his latest project yet. I know he's doing, is it the Kliminski method or something like
Yes,
that?
I haven't seen it, but I think about like his vintage stuff, like even like Romancing the Stone.
Oh yeah.
Totally different than this, but I mean, he's got some real classics. But this one, I know Wall Street is always going to come up, but this one to me is just, I don't know, it's really appealing because it's really him showcasing a lot of subtlety. And I think you asked why this one. So much of this film references what he's wearing, whether it's a pen leaking on his shirt, or there's always some getting spilled on his tie, and the new shirts being tossed in his limo, or his $1,000 shoe is falling off. It's like the clothes and the style of this are very much at the forefront. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's get into a little bit of the style,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
so it kind of sets the tone very early on when you see him getting the breakfast. He's got the tie over the shoulder.
Yeah,
I think I sent
yeah,
a
yeah.
photo to you. I said,
You did.
this is how
Yeah.
I'm going to be drinking my coffee from now on before I leave the
Right.
house. Genius
Right.
idea. Do you do this?
I feel like maybe I should. No, I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't. But maybe he should have had the tie over his shoulder too before, like at the restaurant too.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you can tell he's very, very particular, and the details that they go into with his shirts being monogrammed, and it's he's very much a classic American businessman. And some of the research I did ahead of us talking, on the forums you go back to, and they say, boy, he looks like a quintessential American businessman, very wealthy, very upper crust. Isn't it a shame more people don't dress like that now?
Yeah.
And it's his look is very purposeful,
Yeah.
and that's really evident from the get go. Michael Douglas doesn't. It's not. he's not relaxing in any of these. I guess we see him, a little bit as the film evolves, where he's got some mock turtlenecks and things like that. But he's very much suited the entire, probably, first act and then some in
Yeah.
this, and that's what he's comfortable in. He's not coming home and watching the news and getting his financial updates, loosening his tie. He's still very much in that
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, he's not putting on this as a costume. This is his life, isn't
No,
it?
that's
And,
him.
and
That's
it's
him.
just going off the grass slightly about how people have kind of adapted a very casual approach to work these days. I mean, what's this? The
Yeah,
game's 97, so what we're talking about, 24 years or so.
yeah,
But
yeah.
my, my girlfriend Anastasia's been going back to work. She's been late in the office a couple of days a week. And I said, out of curiosity, what are guys wearing now? And she goes, oh, it's a shit show. It's an absolute shit show. I mean,
Right, right.
beforehand, it was, you'd be lucky to see a tie in the office. Nowadays, people are just kind of wearing these woolen knits because I guess they've been living in it for the last 6 months. It might be a new woolen knit that they've just got. But we've moved so far away from getting anything
Right,
tailored that it's unreal.
right,
Have you
right. And
experienced anything like that around your neck of the woods?
yeah, I think so. I think, a lot of the people that I talk to, both, my friends here locally and my friends online, I think people are looking forward to getting dressed up again, though. I think people, a lot of it has swung the other way, where it's people are sick of wearing, a t-shirt and jeans every day. They're looking forward to going out to a restaurant and getting a suit and tie on and getting dressed up. So I think, I'm hoping the Roaring Twenties are
Just around.
around the corner, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think they are. I think
The-
they are.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, so going back to the game. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
sorry about that.
yeah. No,
But
no, no, no.
but with the tie, what I did notice, and this is going to be a bit tangential as well, when he's throwing it over his shoulder so it doesn't get it stained. You'll see a few years later when he's a very slovenly character in Disclosure, and he's going to work, and he's got shit all over his tie because
That's
he
right.
gets loads of toothpaste on it. But he doesn't like prepare himself. He's not that guy that
Right.
takes any pride in his appearance. So this kind of definitely sets his character apart here.
It's very purposeful, and some of the other things I read, there are a lot of ad-lib lines in this, and you wonder if that's just Michael Douglas getting into that headspace of Nicholas Van Orton, saying this particular gentleman is very, very regimented. He's very cold. The way he interacts with his housekeeper, who's been there since he was a little boy, a young boy. It's incredibly cold. It's
Yeah.
incredibly cold. I think it's really poignant, not fashion related, but the conversation where he's talking to Ilsa, his housekeeper, and says, kind of, what was my dad like? And you think this is somebody that's been part of that family for 40 years, and that's just coming up now.
Never asked that question
So
for. Yeah,
never asked.
there's no Bruce and Alfred relationship
No,
that's being
no, at
fostered
all,
here, right?
at
Yeah.
all.
So it's very cold. I mean, even, and I watched a video essay on the film just before we jumped online. The intro, when he actually does go to work, he kind of goes over the hills of San Francisco,
Yeah,
but he's going to work on like this a monorail almost, isn't it? It's like he's
right.
being driven, like he's not driving to work, he's being driven to work. It's part of his
That's
routine. He's robotic, and that kind of sets the landscape for how his actual life is, isn't it?
it's so true. And
Yeah.
I think most people would like that level of traffic in San Francisco. You just take your BMW and there's not another car in sight. But you're right. It's like his life is on this track, and
Yeah.
that's all he cares about. It's not feelings. It's not emotion. It's I don't want to be wished a happy birthday. It just let me get to my work. That's what
Yeah.
matters. It's a very Ebenezer Scrooge
Right.
way, and I think there are a lot of parallels to Dickens in this as that character arc goes for him.
Let's get into some of the clothes. I know that so when
Yeah.
I did some quiet digging, I don't know why, but a name called Edgar Pomeroy came up. But I've not seen anything connecting to that. He's an American tailor. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
I have not.
he's kind of, I don't know how I even stumbled on this research, but I reached out to Edgar and heard nothing back. But you found some other evidence of who made these suits, right?
Yeah, I found some stuff online too, saying that they were tailored by, and I'm referencing my phone here. This is on thestyleforeman.net. Both or the clothes that Michael Douglas wears are from Oxford, Oxxford, out of Chicago, and Sean Penn's dinner jacket were all hand tailored from Oxford out of Chicago. And evidently, this company goes way back. And I'm ashamed to say I'd never heard of them before. It's like I feel like I should have. Evidently, they tailored Joe DiMaggio's wedding suit when he married Marilyn Monroe, and they had made things for Al Capone. And like,
Wow.
this is a very famous brand. And I feel like I hadn't heard about them in the same way. I think when you talk about American tailoring, it's certainly from that time you think of Brooks Brothers, something like that. And
Ralph Lauren. Yeah.
Ralph Lauren. I just had not heard of this brand, but you can tell the quality of the suits in this film. I mean, and there's some real Cary Grant, vintage Connery looks in this. And the film, it's color graded. It's really dark. I mean, it's a very dark film. So I think it's kind of tough to tell sometimes exactly what, I'm not like Matt is, with the fabrics and the makeup of those fabrics, but it looks like a lot of it's like a gray pick and pick
Yeah.
type suit, and maybe a pale blue dress shirt and a dark blue tie. A very just classic, and maybe that's why this has aged well. The cut of the suits are great. They're not too tight. It's not too baggy. It's a really classic two button silhouette. It's great, and he's wearing very tasteful. If it's a pattern shirt, it's like a grid pattern, and very tasteful, solid ties. And you can tell he carries himself in a way that this is what he's comfortable wearing. He grew up in this. We see what it's like, what his birthday parties were like growing up. Very opulent lifestyle. So, it's the cliche is always, do the suits wear the person as the person wearing the suits? Michael Douglas is very much wearing these suits, and he wears them well.
He was, in fact. I mean, again, you can just fall in love with Michael Douglas watching these films.
Yeah.
It's a very nuanced performance. He's doing so little in the first half an hour before the plot unravels, but yet at the same time, he's doing so much because he's holding back and he's not kind of giving himself away. He's frustrated in the interview that he has to do for this party that's arranging his kind of event, his life-changing event. And everything in that office is, like you say, it's kind of steely, it's cold, it's sterile. What Douglas is wearing is great, but again, it's kind of uniform, it's sterile, nothing's flamboyant, nothing's standing
That's right. It's very austere. Look, his BMW is black. Everything's very, very clean. There isn't a bunch of flash. There's not a bunch of there's nothing superfluous. It's all very purposeful. And then as the film carries on, and he comes back and he goes in, has to break into his own home. There's graffiti and Jefferson airplanes blasting and stuff like that. And that's a great choice of song. Having
great
White
Paul,
Rabbit playing there to play the through the looking glass sort of thing that he's experiencing. I think it shows really good filmmaking. That's a good choice. Yeah. And I think nothing would be more upsetting to a character like Michael Douglas, who is such a control freak about his clothes, about his life, about his car and how he operates, that having all of that taken away from him kind of heightens the audience experience, what he's going through. So it all plays in that.
I've got to ask you, I think we'll have to give a few spoilers away for the film, because it is a film that really does hinge around a certain ending or a prestige of the ending. So it's 97. I'm happy to do spoilers. I'm sure people have listened to it.
Right.
How would you feel, Bobby, if I organized a birthday surprise for you, broke into your flat and sprayed every wall and just basically decimated your life, and then at the end of it I go surprise, and you're like, oh, Pete, you really shouldn't have destroyed my life.
Well, I'll put pause on that, Pete. I don't know how I feel about you personally. I think, it goes back to that journey where, and again, the spoilers, I think the burden that Michael Douglas carries of his father's suicide, that clearly he carries to when he is turning 48, the same age as his father when he passed away. I think that it is that Ebenezer Scrooge type of redemption, that he had to have everything he cared about taken away, and he has nothing left, and really has nothing left to live for. We can talk about how realistic or not that is, with him jumping off at the end, and there's a blanks in the gun, suspension of disbelief. It's fine. And I think that where that resolves a little bit is where he's sitting down with Sean Penn, and it's like, what's that? That's the the bill he's
The
filling out.
bill,
What is
yeah,
it?
yeah,
That that looks like it's a ream of paper, and I think he says something. Would you like you want to split it? He's like, oh yeah, please, please.
yeah.
So I think it's like that catharsis of getting to put his life back centered and maybe coming to grips with what happened to his father, and how he knows he has to make some changes. It's like he's got all the money in the world, some spray paint, we can fix up the mansion again. I think that would maybe worth the cost of getting his life recentered.
Yeah, there is that. So, I mean, it's actually a really good film to watch with your partner. So, I mean, I watched this with Anastasia, and she loved it. I mean, we did it in chunks. So we did it first half, second half, and she was so
Okay.
eager to watch it the second half because Douglas does this thing so well where it's all wrapped around intrigue. You're learning as he's learning. It's the same in
Right.
Basic Instinct, a number of
Yes.
films, and
Yes.
anyone does it better than when he kind of learns, the audience learns, and then you're always behind the proverbial 8 ball with that, aren't you?
I think that's one of the things I enjoy most about this is like I like a good mystery or a good puzzle in general, and it's fun, when he's trying that key in his briefcase and it doesn't work, or he gets handed he comes across the handle that he needs to use in the taxi cab later
Mm,
on.
mm.
It's like you have to pay attention to what's going on here, and I think that to me is appealing. I think a film like that where you have to be engaged and you can't be distracted, you can't look at your phone, you can't
Mm.
have other things going on, you have to be engaged with this. That's really appealing. I think it's cerebral in a cool way.
And you do get the discussions afterwards. I mean, like my Anastasia and I were talking about it even like the next day. She was going, so how come they were shooting real bullets at his car? And then you kind of go, well,
Right.
that's suspension of disbelief, like you were mentioning
Right.
again. It's like
Right.
you do have to, well, how did he get away with driving a taxi into the middle of the you think, well, again,
Right.
that's kind of pushing it. So the conceit is there, the idea is there, that you
Right.
have to kind of rid yourself of all your creature comforts and everything that you're used to in order to get some
Right.
semblance and reality.
Right.
And these kind of little bits like that are the far extremes where they're perhaps taking a
Right.
bit of artistic license with it.
You kind of have to go with it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
kind of have to go with it. So I'm curious, what did you think of the suits he's wearing in this?
So I mean, so here's my initial thoughts. Again, I can't really pick what the fabrics are. I'm not really that way. All I can tell
Yeah.
is he looks comfortable in it. He looks immaculate in it. It's a gray suit. It's silver. It's kind of like his hair as well. Kind of has that marriage to it, to what he's
Right.
wearing.
Right. Right.
And at the same time, I'm thinking now, when did grey suits become sexy? And I guess, well, they've always been sexy. Cary Grant's been wearing them for,
Right.
for a fucking long
Right.
time.
It
So,
does have that North by Northwest sort of,
yeah.
you know, reference, perhaps. It's
Tom
not the same
Cruise in
suit, but
Collateral wears
yeah.
a suit like this. I mean, and then I'm thinking, is it because Michael Douglas just looks like the A-lister? I mean, I think you have to have other things going on to pull off a suit like that. I think you have to have, either a really good skin complexion that can contrast it, or you have to have a mop of swept grey hair back. I don't think pure grey on grey for me is, for me personally. Sorry, I fucking hate that phrase. For me. Bring it
I
back
think
to
you'd,
me.
I think you, I think you'd wear it quite well, Pete. I do.
Very
Um,
sweet.
I think what I like about this too is the echelon of society that Michael Douglas and Nicholas Van Orton participate in. I love the scene where he overhears. It's like you see him. He is very much his
Oh,
own person. He's playing squash
mm,
by himself.
mm.
He's not playing with anybody else. He's playing squash by himself. He's in the locker room. He overhears something about CRS, and then what is he wearing after getting showered and cleaned up? Everybody in this beautiful bar, mahogany behind, and ask the barman back there, next round on me. Everybody's wearing a suit.
Yeah,
So it's like the world that he occupies is this high society world where people would be wearing that. And to me, that adds a real elegance to this. You know, it's like he's at the club playing squash, and afterwards he showers off and he's back in his
Back in
suit.
the suit. And I
Yeah.
think that's the moment where I realized this was a good choice for films, as in a good pick from you. I think this is where
Right. Oh,
because the style, I mean, it make anyone that holds a cut class tumbler in a great suit, in a great cutting suit, you just think, well, you know, he's not wearing that by accident, and then he's done with it 5 minutes later. The whole film kind of centers around what is style and what is importance and what is elegance to him. So yeah, no, at that moment, I think you're right. That was when I picked. Oh, this is a good
yeah.
pick for a topic.
I think the other great line that evidently was ad-libbed is where that shoe falls off,
Yes.
and he, that there goes $1,000. Your shoe cost 1,000. Well, that one did, and maybe I'm reaching too far, but I think the entire next half of the film is he is really truly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Ah,
And again,
nice.
I don't know if I'm looking too far into that, but literally his shoe drops. There's one, and
Yeah.
as that progresses, the other shoe does drop, and finally at the end we get the resolve. But again, it's like you got the shoe, you have the three choices of shirts in the limousine, which I think is cool. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
the only part I would nitpick a little bit is, wouldn't you think this guy would have his own plane? Wouldn't he have maybe that is, maybe I guess we don't see him flying commercial, but it sure seemed like he was in a commercial airport. That's the only nitpick I would have. I think the Van Ortons would have their own plane.
I can see him being like the Jordan Belfort, where he's just flying his own helicopter to places. You know,
Yeah,
he's built
that's
his
true.
yacht especially so he
That's
can
true.
land his
That's
chopper
true.
atop it. So
That's true.
yeah,
The,
I think he is that level of wealth. You're right.
the other one I wanted to bring up to you is, I want to get your thoughts on Sean Penn's double-breasted white dinner jacket. What do you think of that?
That now to me, that did feel a little bit of its time. It looked a little bit loose on him. I mean, I think the whole Sean Penn character, I'm glad he's playing it, because anyone else playing that kind of unhinged character would have looked it would have been looked too showy. But I think when he does it somehow, when Sean Penn does something,
Yeah.
you're utterly convinced. I mean, by the way, so the whole conceit of the film is that he's now got to do a bit of role play in it as well. So when he's in the car and he's been giving all the keys, he's got to go along with this. He could, at any time, if
Right.
that was me, I'd be like, oh fuck it, it's all
Right.
the game's up. Don't worry about it. I can't pull this one off. But he's got to get completely into character as character. So that's the semi-interesting thing going on the side there. But going back to the clothes, I did think that was that looked like it was even done by a different tailor, maybe on purpose. What are your thoughts?
I mean, to me, it makes that made him look a little short in stature. I think. Evidently, it was done by Oxford too. I don't know. I don't have. Yeah, same. I don't know. But for me, I'm not typically a fan of a double-breasted dinner jacket. Maybe that's just my preference. I know they're. I'm not Matt. Again, a single-breasted for me is my preference. Not that there's anything, wrong with a double-breasted, but this one was just okay to me.
Yeah.
However, I like seeing that on film. I think, there's a nod to Casablanca, there's a nod to Goldfinger in there, and I think, seeing a white dinner jacket on film is always cool.
And you're going to get shot wearing that thing as well, right? It's the reason why Bruce wears a vest.
Yeah. Right through that bottle of champagne or wine or whatever he was holding too.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
So I want to cut smash crudely to Michael Douglas waking up in a coffin in a cemetery in a white suit. That to me feels like it doesn't get any worse waking up in a coffin, but then when you wake up in the fucking arse end of Mexico in a cemetery and someone's already lit a fire.
Yeah, it's burning.
That's just cruel.
And he's wearing, there's the redemption in the clothing where he is reborn and he's wearing white for the rest of that kind of scene, or that, his journey back to San Francisco. And, where you look where he cannot even accept, a new assistant wishing him happy birthday a few days before, to literally begging, scraping his pesos and pennies together to get a ride in a semi, curled up in the fetal position back to San Francisco, is very humbling. And so I think that ending where his house is trashed and everything's awful, I think that release is worth suspending the disbelief for.
Yeah. That's an interesting moment, because if that was me walking into the diner, I'd be like, honestly, guys, I'm fucking loaded.
Right. Yeah.
Just call up
Right.
anyone.
Right.
Here's a newspaper that's out today. It's got
Right.
my front page.
Right. Right.
But
I,
he's very
I,
humble. He's like, I got her $18, and
yeah.
he's not really,
Yeah.
but he has to keep a lid on it, doesn't he? That's what's interesting.
I mean, it's what an awkward scene. You feel for the guy. It's like he
Yeah.
walks in and kind of, excuse me, kind of people look and turn and look at him. And then when he starts on, if I can get it, everybody kind of goes back to the meal like, who's this?
Mm,
Please go away.
yeah.
No,
No,
that's a good scene. Really
yeah.
good scene.
Really cool. Well, I don't know if I had any other notes that was written down here. I feel like that was graveyard lit hell. That's the extent of my notes. But yeah, I think I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to cover on this film.
I just want to ask you. You've usually asked me or whomever the guest is what would be the item you would take. So I'm going to flip it to you, Pete. What would be the item that you take from this one?
That's a really good question. Do you know what? I when I saw it, I was actually quite interested in the little telly that he was watching the stocks and shares on. I was like, oh, that's a thing of this day,
Okay.
where you
Okay.
kind of have something on your desk that is that retro.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was the state of the art for him back then. I tell you what, give me a beat. I'll invite you to answer that.
I like the gray suit. I know that's a very safe, easy choice, but he's pairing that with different shirt and tie combinations over the course of the film, and it feels very real. I mean, I love the cut. I like how he wears that. It's a really timeless look, in my opinion. I really like that suit. And like you said, when is like a gray suit like that, really sexy. And it is there. I mean, he makes that. He really owns that look. So to me, that was a standout look of the film for me.
That's a good shout. Much better than mine. I tell you what, I'll actually take a leaf out of your book. You sent me a link to the watch, so that was actually
There we
up for
go.
auction. So
Watch is great.
I'll
Yeah,
take
the
that
watch is
any
great.
day. So that's sold, right? Did someone, or did it not sell?
Evidently, I don't know. That was a real vintage piece. I think it was a Patek Philippe from Tiffany's that they had, and evidently it got kind of dinged up on the film and things like that. And it was kind of like, and that auction link I found, I think, was probably 5 or 6 years old anyway. So I think that was an expensive watch to begin with. So if that did sell, I'm sure it was even more so with having been worn in the film, which is cool.
I'll either have the watch or I'll have the one shoe that dropped off him
That's right.
when he's climbing above the dumpster.
That's
Just
right.
the one, though. I'll only need the one.
That's right. Put it on display.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Bobby, thanks so much for taking time out on a weekend talking the game. Great pick, mate, as always. Great choice. Matched perfectly. The Instagram account, I'm sure you all know by now, the place you can go and follow Bobby's journey. And in the meantime, mate, take care of yourself.
Hey, you too, Pete. My pleasure. Good to see you again. Take care.
You too, mate.